500 Doors, your real estate podcast, speaking with industry experts in real estate buying, selling, planning, developing, wholesaling, investing, financing, management. If it's real estate, we're talking about it. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, an award-winning 6- and 7-figure real estate agent with over 2 decades of experience. Understanding real estate is a dream for many, that we, real estate professionals, have the ability to bring that dream to reality while building better communities and being the change we want to see. Hello and welcome. Well, today's guest, we're going to be talking a lot about what are the alternative kind of housing opportunities, shared space, these types of things. We've seen a lot of shift happen since COVID. And so really leaning in and seeking solutions, because that's one of the things we like to do here at the 500 Doors Real Estate Podcast is find solutions, create communities, and be the change. HomeRoom, a home sharing app that connects users to roommates, social opportunities, and a host of tech-enabled property management tools. Michael previously led marketing and data science teams at Airbnb, where he managed between 50 and 100 million in annual digital marketing spend. After the pandemic led to the Airbnb shutdown, its marketing team in early 2020, Mike quickly found himself at HomeRoom. As CMO, he has helped the early stage company secure 500 million in staging whilst growing. So let's welcome Michael in, because there's a lot of interesting. Right now, I've been in real estate since 1999, Michael. 1999, before the internet. We had the paper books looking for those listings. And I'm telling you, I have never seen a more interesting time in real estate around the world, and all forms of real estate, from storage to shared space to multi-door to commercial. It's all crazy.
Yeah, like there's so much, right? Because everything from Airbnb, you got Neighbor on the storage side, right? Like it's super interesting. Like we've done some partnerships with them, but yeah, it's been
It's
it's kind of it's getting crazy, right? Especially like with interest rates going up, right? You need to find out like how do you get like every bit of cash on cash out of deals, right? And it's it can be tough sometimes, right? So
absolutely. So let's first dive into a little bit more of who is Michael. And
yeah,
before
so
you go, hold on one second. Just so you know, we have something in common, Michael.
mhm.
We're both from Kansas. I'm from
Okay.
Wichita.
Well, I am not personally from Kansas,
Oh,
but
you're
the
not
company is.
personally from Kansas. Well, you live in
No.
Kansas now, right?
No, I don't. I actually live in the Bay Area now.
Oh, you moved. You
Yeah,
moved.
no,
You
no.
were
So,
in
the company was
Prairie.
started. We actually were just buying remotely in Kansas, right? So actually, like
Oh,
and the Johnny, our CEO, used to live there. So right now, we actually don't even have a single person living in Kansas City, which is
okay.
interesting. That's like half of our houses.
Shoot.
So, yeah,
Shoot. I thought I had a fellow Kansan. Okay, it's all good. So we're
yeah.
going to edit that piece out too.
Okay.
Who are you, Michael?
Good. Oh yeah. So name's Mike Tish. I grew up in Baltimore, in kind of the middle of nowhere, like the farmland. Um, the city that's like demographically actually decently similar to Kansas City. So it's like at some point we'll probably go to some of the Baltimore suburbs. But yeah, we went to school in upstate New York, got an engineering degree, ended up moving out to the Bay Area, ended up getting a bunch of jobs in tech, jumped around a bunch. Um, yeah, my wife works in tech as well. So yeah, got a house here. Been really interested in real estate. Ended up buying a first investment property about I guess 6 years ago now, in the Bay Area, which is like kind of yeah, always kind of crazy to think about, right? We realized that like it wasn't cash flowing at all, so did some construction work. Ended up renting it out room by room. Made about a 7% gross, which for the Bay Area, which sounds awful, right? But like in the Bay Area is actually like 30 or 40% above market. Um, so yeah, it's been doing like quite well. Basically breaks even on a cash flow basis, which again for the Bay Area is quite rare. Um, and I kind of always realized I wanted to offer this as a service. And then met up with Johnny, who was kind of also doing kind of the same thing with his properties in Kansas City. Yeah, realized we could kind of combine our interests and kind of grow it. So Yeah, we went from kind of running our own, um, maybe like 100, 200 doors to now we're kind of at like between a property management around about 11, 1200, spread out between Kansas City, Texas, um, in some places in Florida, Atlanta, Phoenix, Charlotte, kind of constantly launching new cities as we see the demand, right? So, uh,
So when we're looking at this, we know that the interest rates are going up. We know that there's a housing shortage going on, right? We are
mhm,
in a housing shortage. Actually, have been in. If you're in real estate, I mean, I've known for over a decade that this has been projected outwards, right?
yeah.
But we've been kicking the can down the road here for a while. Um, with all of these factors in place, you know, what is aligning for home room to be successful for the
Yeah, yeah.
consumer
Mhm.
versus Airbnb right now? Because Airbnb seems to be struggling, not seems, they are
Yeah.
struggling. What is as an investor,
Mhm.
why home room over a product like Airbnb?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the, like the stability aspect, right? So, I mean, Airbnb works pretty well, but like I think one is like a lot of the houses we're buying, they're not in areas that really work that well for Airbnb, right? So, like it might work on Airbnb, but your occupancy rate might be 30%. There's a lot of risk there. Um, Also, the property management fees can get kind of insane if you don't want to do it yourself, right? So, like,
Yeah.
you will make more money on Airbnb if you are like very good at it and manage it yourself, and like don't charge the 30 or 40% like property management fees. We take about 15, so it's not as too bad, right? But we're able to get higher returns than just renting out the whole house, but only slightly less than the equivalent of an Airbnb. Um, yeah, we found that actually, like, when we opened a new house in Tampa that just came online that was kind of operating as an Airbnb before, and we'd actually doing quite a bit better there just because it's like we can able to get $600 a room. Occupancy rate has been pretty much close to 100% there, right? So it works out pretty well.
How does that work if so let's say I have a house in Calgary, Alberta that's been, let's just say hypothetically, it's in
Hmm.
a homeroom service area. I've had a house Airbnb, and since the pandemic, I've been unable to keep it occupied enough to even carry costs. So I'm going to flip it
Hmm.
over into this. How does it work in renting room by room, and
Hmm.
also how do you keep people aligned? Like, I'm just looking at, I don't even like to share the kitchen with my husband. I
Hmm.
can't
Yeah.
imagine sharing it with somebody else's husband.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we
walk
it's
me
almost
through
all
all that.
single. I would say 98% single people, right? So it's you don't
Okay.
have too many like larger family dynamics. Um, yeah, I mean, it's obviously not going to be like it might not be as huge Airbnb as like a general large market, right? But I think there's like a ridiculous amount of people between the ages of 22 and 45 that kind of just want their own place to stay. Our rents are not absurd either, right? So I think one thing we're trying to do is also like how do we provide as much affordable housing to
Yeah.
as many people as possible, right? So, um, rooms are anywhere between 400 and $600 a month, right? So it's uh, like in a lot of areas, it's like half the price of a studio apartment, right? So it's and that's always something I thought was crazy when we moved to the Bay. Like my wife and I were always big in this for like a really long time as well, even when we were renting. So we would take a 5 bedroom house, find a bunch of her friends, right, a bunch of my friends, and kind of it worked itself out really well, right? Like we found like incredibly good deals just by like hacking it around. Like there was one we were spending like $500 or $600 for a room in like in the Bay Area, which is like for here is just astronomically insane, right? So, yeah.
What are some things that a property owner can do to ensure that a property itself
Mhm.
is conducive to the lifestyle of the people who are doing the shared property?
Yeah, I think we found a few things. One is to make sure we have at least some common spaces reserved, right? So we have at least a fair decently large kitchen, have at least like a couch, a sitting area, a TV, and whatnot there. And then really for us, it's like I think we haven't found like that like they care that much about like the size of the rooms, right? So like as long as they're over 100 to 150 square feet, it's usually okay. Um, and then for everything else, you're just okay. Like, how can we add in as many rooms to make sort of the numbers work and make everything like yeah conducive to that situation, right? So I would say our median house has about 6 bedrooms, anywhere from about 5 to 8. Once you get below 5, the numbers don't usually work that well. And then once you get above 8, you usually run into like way more city issues. You run into neighbor issues. You run into parking issues.
That's what I
Um,
was gonna
yeah.
ask is about parking, because I know a lot of newer communities, the properties are much smaller, the land is much
Mm.
smaller, which means less curb space for cars, less,
Yeah,
garage
we
space, stuff.
haven't found like most houses newly built after about like 2000, 2010, they can get kind of difficult just in the parking space. So we found a lot of success with older properties as well, and also the cap rates are way higher. The cash on cash is a lot higher, right? So um, yeah, I think the biggest thing is how do you find a houses that have enough parking, have street parking and whatnot. So
Yeah, they say that the biggest challenge is people parking and poop. That's the biggest complaints, those 3
yeah,
things. What about pets?
yeah,
During the
yeah,
pandemic, lots of people got dogs. So what
yeah.
about pets?
I know for the most part, I would say almost all of our tenants don't have pets, right? I know my personal properties, I do allow them to have like pets as long as the other tenants are kind of okay with it. But obviously, that's kind of hard to manage. There's a little more wear and tear, right? So I just charge a little bit more in rent to kind of make up for some of that. Um, but yeah, for most of homeowners, I would say almost all of them, the owners kind of just like they don't want to deal with all the pets and the negotiating with all the tenants and everything. So,
Okay, so we have a new phenomenon happening here, and are you seeing it down there? Garden suites in the back. So
oh yeah, I
here,
mean
that's
that's how
being legal.
that's how my Bay Area place works so well. Yeah, there's actually
So
like a yeah,
walk me
that like
through that. How
mhm.
does that work?
Yeah, I mean, so I've personally never done like the process to actually get it built. The house I bought kind of already had one, and then we just made some minor adjustments to get the cash flow up. Um, but yeah, it's like basically we have a house in the back. We rent it out as 2 separate studios, and we it does like ridiculously well. It's making almost like about 70 or 80% of as much as the front house. Um, and it's just because there's like a very large premium in the Bay Area of like studio apartments, right? So um, yeah,
And
it
and
does.
do you see that as being a solution opportunity for our challenges around um
Yeah,
the like we are in serious crunch. So here in Canada, just to give you
yeah,
an idea as to what's going on in Canada. Canada's
yeah,
short,
mhm.
documented short over just around a half a million homes. Now we're 1/10 of the population, so that's on par tracking
It's
where the
probably about
United
that in the
States
Bay Area.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm,
So, however, Canada by
mhm,
2025
mhm,
will have brought in within 4 years, nearly 5 years, nearly 2,000,000 new
mhm,
Canadians.
mhm.
So, where do they go? Even if that's still another 500,000 homes, even if there's 4 to a
Yeah,
property. So so what do you foresee as a housing solution provider? Like, that's really kinda seems to be the place that you're in one fashion or another. Is it a weekend getaway at Airbnb, or is it
mhm,
a, place that you can hang your hat on a daily basis? What are some of the solutions that you think if somebody's got a little bit of equity in their property
yeah.
that they could look at start leveraging or providing?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, in California, the in-law units have become, like, huge, right? There was just a new law passed that made it basically, like, a lot harder for cities to sort of deny the permits, right? Which was a big issue for years, right? So, like, I think they were saying San Jose, like, 5% of the houses have unpermitted ADUs just because, like, they made the process so annoying to get one, right? So then just, like, no one bothered applying for them. And the San Jose government basically doesn't enforce anything, right? So they're like, it just yeah, that's what happens. Um, yeah, so it's like I think that as we get that and make it more a little bit more mainstream, make it as easy as possible, we'll see a lot as like how can we get as many turnkey providers? Most of the companies I've looked at looked about adding one into like my primary residence. They're just like very expensive right now. So like I stayed at one where like someone just threw in like an airstream into their backyard because that was just like the cheapest way of doing it, which
I
was a
never
really
even
cool Airbnb, but like
I never even thought about that, like,
yeah,
'cause, especially more temperate climates, I mean,
mhm,
an RV is as
yeah,
nice for a
yeah,
lot of people
mhm,
as a studio,
yeah,
right? What about putting basements underneath? So we have a
Mhm,
gal in Oshawa, Canada that helps
mhm,
her clients literally take a single
mhm,
property
yeah,
house, and especially if they're on corner lots, they have no problem with parking zones,
mhm,
um, and turn those into 4 and 6 units.
mhm.
But they're putting suites underneath these garden suites.
Yeah,
Is
a
that
lot of
something you're
the,
seeing?
yeah, I mean, like, a lot of the houses already kind of had basements, right? And especially in the Midwest and Texas, so it's like, yeah, the houses with basements do pretty well, right? Because it's just, like, so much extra floor space you can work with. So, like, maybe without it, it would be pretty hard to get it up to a 6 or 7 bedroom, right? But once you have all that extra space, um also, most of them have separate entrances, right? So you can add in, like, a second or third unit, right? If you have, like, a easy way to get down there. If you have like some of them actually have like access from the bottom directly, right? So makes it even like way easier, right? To have like an extra 2 bedroom studio, which rents out for like quite a bit more, right? So um,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, like
So
my property in the Bay Area, like all the houses just happen to have extra like doors going directly to the rooms, right? Which actually adds it as like kind of like three extra studio apartments in one house, but you still have some shared living space as well. So
I like to ask a lot of questions around community.
mhm,
Um, and when you're creating multiple door properties, right?
mhm.
What are some of the things that a landlord could do to ensure that there's a sense of community within that space to, I guess, ward off any uh, challenges or disputes? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it's a tough one. I mean, like, vetting tenants pretty hard is probably the best one, right? Which is, like, I think that's one thing we found, right, of making sure, like, 1, everyone pays on time, 2, everyone's very responsible, right? So, and also just make sure they get along with other people, right? So, we have all the one thing I've also personally done is basically when a new tenant's looking to join, we just, like, send out a quick group message to all them and the kind of the tenants that already live there. If, like, okay, you wanna, like, put on a quick phone call, let's see if this makes sense. Um, but there's obviously a lot of work that goes along with that, right? So that's part of why homeroom has like a value add there is we kind of manage all that for you. We run like community events in each market. We run like pizza nights for the house if they want to be interested in that, right? So everything try to get the house like active and lively and whatnot, and that like up and running. Um, yeah.
With fewer people, so they say 30% of our workforce will not go back to
Mhm.
a traditional workspace.
Yeah.
So knowing that these spaces, these homes, when you're looking at multiple doors and your demographic, your avatar, your ideal
Yeah.
client is under that 30 mark,
Mhm.
does that then now create another set of potential issues or service offerings when it's also gonna be their office?
It's certainly been harder to manage utilities, let's put it that way. Because like,
Okay.
we also manage utility splitting for all of our tenants, which is like, it's a lot of work. I feel like that's the hardest part of the business, and I definitely, like, I think Johnny and I are just like, "Oh, why is this so ridiculously hard?" Um, but at a basic level, what we kind of do is we'll, like, split out the utilities between the tenants that live there, 1 every month sort of automatically for them, and then any if they're over a certain amount, they have to basically like they're going to pay for that. And then if they're over like an even higher amount, we'll kind of have the owners pay for some of it, just so it's not as like ridiculously awful on the tenants. Um, but yeah, it's like been hard to try to manage and process that to make it so it's like a good working relationship for the tenants that live there, while also like we don't kill any houses by getting utilities too high. If there's a heat wave in Texas, how do you make sure people don't leave because of that? Like it's just like so many little issues there that have been, I would say,
Yeah.
fun, but yeah,
I would say that would have been interesting. I would have never thought because I know that, and this is gonna make you keel over when you hear this, folks. Oh my gosh, we just about fell off our rocker. We just got our electric bill here in
yeah,
Calgary this last month, and our heat is natural gas. So this is just electric. $900. I just about fell over, and I know that California is kind of in the
yeah.
same boat
I
when it
have
comes
so my 2 houses in California were $2,000 last month. So
each
um,
or to collective?
total. So
Total,
like
okay. So
about the
on
same.
par. On
Yeah.
par. And those houses, what size? What was the square footage or occupancy of those homes?
So one is just where we live, right? Me and my wife.
Yeah.
So three people, and one and the baby, and then the other one has five, right? But it's like that one was about 1,200. Our house was about 800, right? So like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not even using that much, right? Like we look at their usage, and it's like reasonable, like the same as last year. And just the gas portion of it in the other house went from 300 to 800, right? So like almost 3x year over year. And that's like all
Wow.
just because of like the price per whatever it is for gas, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah,
Price
PG&E is
per
also pretty
unit, yeah.
awful, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
natural gas is more expensive down there. Natural gas
yeah,
is like if I could turn on my lights with natural gas right now, I would, 'cause,
yeah,
electricity's killing us. But, so, I mean,
yeah.
these are all very valid solutions. Now, what about getting launched into, uh property ownership, property management. Um, does homeroom do anything to help people understand the finances, maybe
Mhm,
help them come up with partnerships? So if you have three young people, if you have three
mhm.
people, like let's say 30 years of age that want to go in collectively on a house, does homeroom have anything along those lines to help serve that? Or is this strictly a property management vehicle?
Yeah, so I mean, we do investment management services as well as property management, right? So I would say it was much bigger before interest rates went up, right? Like now we've seen more growth and like basically traditional property management, but like that was 99% of our houses, I guess, before the last maybe 6 months. Um, Basically, where we would find people houses. Most of the investors would come in from California, or we have a few in Canada as well. Actually, like our one sales guy is up in Canada. Have people from New York City who just see their like the cap rates and cash on cash in their market just being like really really bad. Find them houses in either Texas, Kansas City, Florida. Target anywhere between maybe like 5 and 10% cash on cash. Uh, Total ROI with appreciation, principal pay down in the 20 to 25% range. Um, yeah, help them find the house, underwrite the deal, estimate the rent. Um, and then once we help them purchase the property, right? So we'll act as a real estate broker. So we're like a registered, we have a brokerage that's a good friend of the company that works in sort of all the cities and states we're in. So then he has his agents in each market that we work directly with to purchase the property. Um, we then also have a local like a construction company that we work with in each market. So we'll set up those relationships, get the construction work done, and everything else. So
With the interest rates having gone up, we've touched on that a couple times. Um, there will be people who will not want to sell. I'm sorry, if you're
yeah,
locked in at you've got a 30-year mortgage at 2.6%, you're
yeah.
not going to sell that property.
Mhm.
Are these people, those properties ideal for doing these shared accommodation rental if they outgrow it or in any way, shape, or form? Like they have to move cities or if they have
Yeah, for
to
sure.
they have to go up in size because 'cause they've had 5 kids or down in size because all 5 kids have left home.
Yeah,
W
definitely. I think especially if that house is a little bit on the larger side, it works usually right out of the box. Um, Usually, the kind of when we run the numbers, we'll run every house. On average, 4 bedrooms will make about 10% less, but you get a little more stability renting out as the whole house. 5 bedrooms are about 15% more, and then 6 bedrooms are about 30, and seven about 45. So like if you have if the house is on the larger side, just with the number of people that can live there, it works incredibly well out of the box. Um, but if you look at the cash on cash of adding in those extra bedrooms, it becomes like a ridiculously profitable investment, right? So going from a 4 bedroom to a 7 bedroom can add as much as like 30 to 40% cash on cash just from that like relatively large, small down like upfront payment. So we found it costs anywhere between like $10,000 and $20,000, making some relatively small adjustments, right? So a lot of houses have like a ridiculous amount of extra common space. They might have a huge basement that's not really like being used as much living space, right? So we'll come in, add in the extra bedrooms, um, yeah, figure out how to do that, right? So I think it's one thing like we also were willing to fund a lot of that money and pay it out as sort of that house does well over time, right? So that's things we found relatively attractive to people just because like that return is so high.
If somebody was wanting to intentionally move into this market, which I
Mhm.
do believe is a very viable market for the long term, like, I think 10 years, this is what
Mhm.
we're gonna see until we can see housing solutions, properties being built. So supply and demand.
Yeah.
If you're short supply, right?
Mhm.
If you short supply and you have a high demand, then your prices go up. So
Yeah.
if we can get that supply,
Mhm.
then the prices level out for the average person. What are the cities? If I was literally, it had nothing to do with where I lived,
Mhm.
what would be your top 3 cities you think would be a good place to find property and
Yeah,
do
yeah,
business?
for us, I'd say, like, the best deals we found recently for us have been in, like, Tampa and Atlanta, kind of the top 2. Tampa especially, we have, like, one of our investors has a whole bunch of houses there, either with us or with one of our major competitors who's also in Tampa. And they're in, like, doing, like, absurdly well, right? Just because like, the rents there have, like, gotten insane on the studio apartments, right? So we're able to, like, rent out incredibly quickly at $600 a room. Uh, Tenants are paying sort of all the utilities all in. So like, don't like not just talk about 1% roll. He's at like 1.5 to 2%, which is just like kind of insane when you think about it, right? Where we are.
Yeah. Is there
Um,
is there in those markets, so Atlanta we know has
mm,
a booming and thriving media market. Like it's doing nothing but growth. In Tampa, I'm not sure what like the commerce influence is in Tampa. What
yeah,
is the industry influence? Is
mhm.
there something that you're seeing that is a marker in
Yeah,
those that is influencing that ability?
yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just where are people moving in there from outside the state and outside that market, right? Because a lot of people have like, if you have a ridiculous number of friends, maybe you already have be able to provide, they'll kind of do it yourself. But if you kind of are new to an area, it becomes like incredibly popular, right? So like Austin, Texas is one like basically like we had almost 100% occupancy rate since we launched there. The prices are a bit higher, right? So it doesn't cash flow like as well as a place like Tampa or Austin, but um, yeah, it's like a highest price market and everything, just because you have so many tech workers coming in, you have so many people working from home that are looking to find like amazing places to live. So
Yeah, and then I know that in I think we have all these chip plants. We have a lot of
mm,
industry happening, a lot of
yeah.
tech industry that's setting up new facilities like in
Mhm.
Phoenix and such. Is that driving a lot of that mobility, especially for young people? And
Yeah, yeah.
I
It was
consider
before all
anybody
the
under
layoffs, yeah.
35.
Yeah,
I consider anybody under 35 to be, and when I say young person, I'm not really talking specifically age. I'm talking the aptitude for the new commerce world, meaning how we do business through through the internet. You get people who are over that 50 mark. There will be a small percentage that are very intuitive,
Mhm.
but I think that our younger people are more nomadic. They're
Yeah.
more willing to just
Mhm.
pick up a laptop and go where they need to go. If you
Mhm.
were to say, okay, so we've got Austin, Atlanta, and Tampa.
Mhm.
If you were to pick randomly based off of news you've read for new commerce opportunities that's going to attract people. So we know
Mhm.
Denver is on a huge boom
Yeah.
right now because there's all these uh, farms, these
Mhm.
Google farms going up, and I mean, I met people who are living in Cheyenne, Wyoming,
Yeah.
commuting to Denver, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's
just,
not a fun drive either, 'cause, like, kinda windy there
no,
too. I did a road trip across the country with COVID, and it's like, yeah, it's like we passed through Denver and Cheyenne, and it was
yeah, Cheyenne,
pretty far.
cool little city, but I will tell you,
Mhm.
I remember when, um, back in, 2000
Mhm.
is when Amazon or Walmart first put a distribution center in there, and then Amazon came along and put a distribution center in, like, 2006, one of the first big ones.
Mhm.
I remember when properties were selling for
Mhm.
$40,000, and those same properties now are at $400,000. So, if you were to say, "I'm going to put in and know that this 10-year holding, pattern," what would be kind of your top 3 cities you would watch right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's probably the same, I would say, just because that's where homeroom is, right? I mean, in terms of, like, yeah, 10-year holding pattern is kind of a going, right? Because it's not, like, too short or too long, right? I Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like I think the number one I would do is definitely Austin, right? Just because like, you see so many tech jobs going up, you see so many, like, everything
Yeah.
else. And like you can still find places that like do cash on cash decently well, right? So it's not as crazy bad as some areas of California. I think the second one for me would probably be like San Diego. You see just a lot down there. The prices are probably half as much as you would get in like places like the Bay Area or
I have to
California.
see this baby. Bring the baby in.
Okay,
I Yeah,
sure.
bring the baby in. Okay.
Okay, Kira, you can be on the podcast. Come on, Kira. 1 second.
上班去给你带小饼干了，好不好？
Kira, you want to say hi?
不要，妈妈
No, no, no.
不要，
Oh.
Kira, do you want to say hello?
Hello.
妈妈，
Oh, you just moved. You just moved. Hello. What's her name?
Kira.
Kira. Hello, Kira. Hello, Kira. What do you like about your house? I see you've got toys in the background. Do you like your house?
Do you like our house?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to grab one more city for you. We've got Austin, San Diego. What is the next city for
Yeah.
that you think that if I gave you
Mhm.
if I gave you $1 million, no, if I gave you 500,000 and I
Yeah.
said I want you to go and find me a city that you believe is a 10-year long investment,
Mhm.
what would it be?
I mean, I'd probably buy where I live, right? If it's well, 500K is going to be able to live, but yeah, yeah, I think I'd probably try to find another place like.
那个贴纸，
1 second.
No worries.
So I live in the San Jose, right? So
Yeah.
it's always pretty hard here, right? But like I think with Prop 13 and everything, I believe in the Bay Area long term, right? Which is also why I own 2 houses here. Also, like 10 years is probably not enough for here. Going to be honest.
No.
Because yeah, like California, you have the whole Prop 13 aspect, right? Which is like
So
really messes
so
up the valuations. But yeah.
yeah, and I know that like in San Fran, there's like been nothing but like blockages on commercial conversion to
Mhm.
residential, and yet it's emptying out,
Yeah,
right?
it's insane,
Like
right? Like
every
you
city,
think it'd be
every
like,
city
yeah.
is emptying out these
Yeah.
commercials. So that means the downtowns are getting hollowed out.
Yeah, I definitely would not buy in San Francisco, right? So like,
No,
I think Silicon Valley and the suburbs will do okay, but I'm probably
yeah,
literally the only one that says that, right? Because I just have maybe I'm just biased because I happen to already have real estate here. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. So quickly, Michael, where can people find you and connect with you?
sure. Yeah, you can just add me on LinkedIn if you are interested in reaching out personally. So you just go to like bit.ly/mtish is the easiest way there. And then yeah, like you can find me on livehomeroom.com/invest if you're interested in learning more about the investment side of the business. So.
Very cool. Very cool. And Michael, I always ask our guests to close us out with a quote that inspires, because I believe that we all need that good energy, the good quotes. What is a quote that inspires you?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a good one. Trying to think of a good one. Hmm. I don't know. I feel like can't think of any like good like very hitty quote, right?
What's
Uh,
anything? Give me
yeah.
anything, Michael. Anything that just comes to mind. So for myself, I am
Mhm.
always in the collaboration space. And
Yeah.
I always say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Right. So
Yeah.
that's a African proverb. Is
That's a
there
good
anything
one.
is there anything that you quote on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's like I feel like people always hate it, but I feel like there's just like going fast and breaking things is still very much a part of our culture, right? It's like maybe a large part of it because we're still like a seed stage startup. We went through the whole YC thing, right? So we move incredibly quickly, right? So I think just move fast in general, I think is like the biggest one for us.
Move
Um,
fast. So they say fail
yeah,
fast so you can
mhm,
continue moving forward.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah, we failed on like so many things recently, right? But it's more of like, okay, if you like don't if you fail in a week, right, you lost 10 more times, you can get there, right? Where if you
Absolutely,
yeah,
and it's not failure, it's feedback, folks. On that, we're going to close the show out
yeah.
today, and I do want to remind everybody that Edison said, he did not find 10,000 ways the light bulb would not, he did not fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways the light bulb would not work. So, you know what? Reach out to Michael. We'll have all his information in the show notes. And you know what? Until then, guys, until next week, just treat yourself well. Do know that we're all doing the best we can.
Mhm.
Thank
Sounds
you,
great.
Michael.
Cool.
Thank you for joining us at the 500 Doors, your real estate podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group at Real Estate Success with 500 Doors. Keep on watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know sharing is caring.